Welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is Dr. Kelly Champagne again. Today we're going to talk about solo travels. So this is one of the topics that a lot of people have asked me to touch on, as a lot of people or a lot of my friends and family know I literally call myself the queen of solo travels. That's how many or how much solo trips that I've done. So I've literally been to Southeast Asia, UK, Dubai, you can name a lot of places by myself. I'll just give a few examples of when I started solo travels. I think it was around 2016 when I did my first major solo trip. And I had just finished my first year of, or finished my internship and as a medical doctor. And I said, you know what, I want to have one major trip, go somewhere nice, somewhere different. And I was at a point in my life where I was trying to contemplate and trying to decide how I want to shape my life, especially in terms of what specialties I wanted to go into and or what field of medicine, because I knew that whatever choice I made was going to affect the rest of my life and affect every aspect of my life, my social life, my lifestyle, my finances, you can name it. Whatever field of medicine was going to affect the rest of my life. So I was at a point where I was like, you know what, I have an idea of what I want, but I want to be very clear. And so I was single by then, and obviously going through this point, I was like, where's my career going? Where's my life going? And so I decided to book a trip to Southeast Asia, specifically Thailand, Cambodia, and Vietnam. So I booked a 4-week trip to travel around those few places. So I went home first, which is I went to Botswana for a few weeks. So my family, and I said goodbye. And after 2 weeks of spending time with them, and I embarked on this solo trip. And that was my first major trip. So I arrived in Vietnam. That was the first place that I arrived at. I had never been to Vietnam, of course, and I thought it was fantastic. It was very different, and it was the first Asian country that I've been to, and Vietnam was great. I arrived there. I met a few people on that trip who had come in as well as solo travelers, and we all had a group and we're just sort of traveling together around the area. And so one of the biggest things that happened in Vietnam is actually quite funny now that I think about it, but at that point it was like, oh my God. So as I left Vietnam to cross the border over into Cambodia, I got stuck at the border, literally got stuck, because I wasn't allowed to leave Vietnam until after at least 6 hours of back and forth with immigration staff, mainly because the people at the immigration border at Vietnam had no idea where Botswana is, and had no idea Botswana wasn't even a country. So they thought I was carrying an illegal passport. So I wasn't allowed to leave Vietnam because of this. It didn't make sense because I had entered Vietnam. I had a stamp. I had the Vietnamese visa, but I wasn't allowed to leave. So it took hours of back and forth. I had to be taken by the authorities to the Cambodian side of the border. And then we had to negotiate. I had to show them where Botswana was in the map, say a few things about Botswana. That's only then that they believed me. And then I went back into the Cambodian side and I told them I showed into the Vietnamese side, and I told them all the proof. And only then was I allowed to leave the country. It was the most ridiculous thing ever. But that was like quite an experience. I remember at that point I had all these friends that I had met during that trip waiting for me in a bus. Like a lot of them were from the UK and European countries, and some from Australia as well. So they were all waiting, like, what's happening? And the bus couldn't leave without me, and so they waited for hours. I remember when they Vietnamese people finally said, yep, you can go. And I went into that bus and everybody stood up with a standing ovation and started clapping and be like, yay, she's back. We are on to Cambodia. And so we went. So we crossed the border, went into Cambodia. We spent almost 9 days in Cambodia, traveling around different cities and different towns. That was one of the most beautiful trips of my life. I remember we traveled to this little village in the middle of nowhere. I don't even remember the name of the village. And there was this couple who lived there. One of the men was he was an American soldier who had fought during the Vietnamese War, and he settled down in Vietnam, and he was married to a Vietnamese lady. And then this lady was telling us, oh, my husband is unwell and he hasn't been feeling well. And everybody on the bus said, oh, Kelly's a doctor, And then the wife asked if it's okay for me to have a chat with the husband. Oh, so I agreed. So I sat down with this man and just established what had been happening. Basically, he had a lot of chronic conditions and had not been taking his medications for a while. And so because of that, obviously that was affecting his health. So we literally spent half an hour basically really just gaining an understanding of where he was at and why he didn't want to comply with the medications. And did a bit of counseling and just sort of try to show him the big picture. And it was really fruitful. It felt really good because after that he was like, you know what, doc, I will start taking my medications again. And of course, I did advise him to go see his local doctor as soon as possible as well. But that was quite fulfilling. So we continued our trip around Cambodia, learned a lot of different things. What was so funny is some of the people in Cambodia actually thought I was from Cambodia. I had this really cool hairstyle where I had half my hair shaved and then the other half. You know what? I think I used to be cool. Growing up has just totally slowed my vibe. But and with my brown skin, they thought I was from Cambodia. So they would come towards me and speak to me in that language. And I was like, just tried to be nice and everything, but not try. But it was interesting. But it was a lot of fun. The country had gone through a lot, especially with history, but the people were very positive and everything, they were trying to get over the genocide that happened, and but it was quite life-changing. I feel like I had a very life-changing moment there. Actually, I think it was one of the nights that I was sitting at a actually sitting by the riverside, and I was just thinking and contemplating about my life and reflecting and just thinking about all these questions I had in my thoughts about where do I see myself 5 years from now, 10, 15, 20, 30 years, and which specialty I want to get into. And it was at that particular point that I made that decision of where I want to go in my life. And the decision was based mainly on who I am as a person. I was like, look, one, I like to have a good lifestyle. I cannot deny that. I want to be able to not only be able to do medicine, but have time for other things too. I'm a kind of person who has a lot of passions outside medicine. Yes, I love medicine, but I also love the media, hence the YouTube channel and Media Doctors Australia, and I love fashion. I love public speaking and motivational speaking. And I was like, I love all these things. And, I needed to choose a specialty that I felt like would allow me to be able to enjoy all these different aspects of myself. So that was the second thing as well that came to my realization. The third thing was I'm a people's person. And I was like, what? I'm a people's person. I enjoy talking to people. And I found that sometimes working in the hospital, for me anyway, you see patients, they come in with conditions. Of course, you treat them and then they're out. So you end up being in the zone of treating the condition and not the person themselves. Whereas I'm a kind of person who like to know people in depth. You know, I don't only want to know that physical side, but I want to understand the social, the psychological side of it, you know. So I was like, I want to choose a specialty that would allow me to tap into a person holistically. And fourth thing, of course, I mean, a lot of flexibility and, you know, be able to take time off whenever I wanted. So that is how I ended up making a decision that I am going to get into family medicine, and that is going to be my specialty of choice. And so I enrolled the following year, and then I started my specialty training. And so my major interests are in family medicine and public health. And so those are the areas of medicine I was like, yep, I'm going to run with it. Public health, mainly from the leadership side of things. Not only do I like making a difference in patients' lives, I also love making a difference in a bigger platform. So I would hope to one day go into the world of making decisions in a bigger platform in terms of policy making and legislation and some of those things. That is one of the biggest benefits I got from traveling alone, because I really had time to reflect. I really had time to put my life into perspective and figure out where I want to go. So that was Cambodia. We traveled into Cambodia, then eventually went into Thailand. Thailand was a great experience. You know, I got to learn a lot of things, and I'm a kind of person who likes trying everything. Like literally, I would go anywhere. So, you know, being open to going to ping pong shows and all those things, that was a whole different world, but that was a lot of fun. But the best thing about this trip was the amazing people I met. Like there were about 16 people that I met throughout this whole trip in those 4 weeks, and I met some of the best people I had ever met in my life. And a lot of them are still lifelong friends as we speak. And one of the interesting facts, this is an additional fact actually, is later on that year, so that this trip was actually around February. Later on that year, around August, I decided to travel to the UK. So I traveled to England, to London, then I went out to Wales, Scotland, Ireland. And you know the interesting fact? A lot of the people that I met on the trip in Asia were from some of those countries and some of those towns. And a lot of them actually gave me accommodation for free. So I spent 6 weeks in the UK and did not pay accommodation for a single day. That saved me over what? $10,000. I have no idea, but a lot of money, because some of the, those are the benefits of solo travels. You meet amazing people who become friends. And so that was one of the greatest things. And I will forever be grateful to some of those experiences and forever be grateful to some of those people I met. So what are some of the important lessons I've learned solo traveling? You meet amazing people. You are forced to come out of your bubble because you have no choice. You are by yourself. You're forced to talk to the person next to you that you have no idea who they are, where they're from. And you get to learn about different people, different cultures, different people's way of doing things, their language, their background. You just learn to meet different people. And a lot of them, for me, for example, became lifelong friends. Two, you do a lot of self-reflection. When you are by yourself for a long time, you have no choice but to be in your thoughts. And one of the things is you don't have a lot of distractions. You don't have family around. You don't have your partner around. You don't have friends, nobody else but yourself. So you have no choice but to face your naked self. Your naked self in every aspect, you have no choice but to think, where's my career at? Where are my finances at? Where is my relationship side of things at? What about my friendships? So you really have time to reflect on every aspect of your life and actually put things into perspective of how you actually want to run your life. And so that's what I found. So that's one of the things that I learned quite early on. and that has served me for up until now. You know, I would confidently sit here and say I know myself for sure, because I've literally been faced with a lot of times that I actually had no distractions and actually literally had to face myself. So you really learn to know yourself. Third thing is you learn to enjoy your own company. And I feel like once you know how to enjoy your own company, that is the biggest breakthrough in life. Like, you know, I'm a kind of person who's comfortable to just go to a cafe, have a meal, have a whole brunch, a coffee, and go home. Or go on a date night by myself. Like the number of times I've actually dressed up on a Friday night and went for a nice place, had dinner, had wine, and enjoyed myself, then came back home by myself and be actually content. So when you're traveling, when you learn to travel solo, you're forced to come out of your hotel room and go have dinner, go have a meal. So you learn to enjoy your company in every aspect. And I feel like if you learn to enjoy yourself and your company, you're able to, you know, it's easier for other people to enjoy being in your company as well. So that's one of the things that I learned. And you also translates to true happiness, where it comes from within. You learn to be happy within yourself in all those aspects, and that will reflect in every aspect of your life. It'll reflect in your relationships, your friendships, your family, your friends, your career, your colleagues. Like, it'll reflect everywhere. Those are some of my few lessons from solo travels. So I'll still do it now, you know, like that's one of the things that my partner already knows about me. I told him, like, I am still very happy to take a trip by myself to a place. So I think if you haven't experienced doing a solo trip to any country or any town, it doesn't have to be anywhere far. It could just be the next town. Just book a nice hotel for 2 days, spend time by yourself. I reckon it's something to experience at some point in life. You would be surprised of how much you learn about yourself and how much happier you would feel after it. So do travel solo if you can, but if you've got any questions, please let me know. Thank you.